I am very much on the side of Ross from the YouTube channel Accursed Farms. He does his Game
Mm.
Dungeon series, and he talks about how games as a service is often a very, very risky process to do because once the service has stopped, you can't play the game anymore. And that not only means that the money you've spent on the game or the time you spent on the game is no longer, worth anything. It also means that we're losing a piece of history. People have
Yeah.
said, Wildstar, and they miss Wildstar. I never got a chance to play Wildstar, which is a real
Oh
shame.
man.
But what I would love is if they can't make money off Wildstar anymore, okay, just release it for free officially. Just find someone or some company
Release
that
the
would
server
support, release the
code so
server
people
code,
can
allow people
private.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, do it. Because I get that it's expensive to host things. Guild Wars 1 is still online because it takes like 1% of the Guild Wars 2 server power to keep it
Yeah.
up. And they decided that keeping it up was a worthwhile thing to do.
Yeah.
So when old MMOs die, I mean, the biggest one that affects me personally is Otherland. Otherland is now off. You can't access Otherland at all. One of the only remaining artifacts of what the crazy Otherland MMO was like is my video series finishing it. And the screenshots that were on the Discord. There's no other way you can walk around those lands anymore, like City of Heroes.
Yeah.
Once those games are dead and they aren't making money off them anymore, I would love it if there was some kind of charity even.
Like an MMO museum almost.
Yeah, the MMO museum. I would love that. A charity. Private servers. People say, what about private servers? Private servers are great, but they're also risky because you are then sending and receiving data to and from something that you can't fully guarantee is always safe.
Yeah.
And many people have asked me if I would review an MMO that's only available on a private server, and I would love to play a load of MMOs on private servers, but I know the moment I do, I am opening myself up to a world of emails of, hey, play my private server, and I don't want that hassle.
This has just made me realize something. My Mojang had the best business model for them that anyone could have come up with. Buy our game and then find someone else to host a server.
Yeah. Yeah.
They've got no server hosting unless you then pay additional for like a 10-man server. It's bizarre, actually.
I
I've
mean,
never thought about this until today.
It's ridiculous. If I had the money for it, I would absolutely just buy a massive server farm and just host old MMOs on them.
Yeah.
And be like, right, I'm keeping them out of history. It's almost like losing a book. To me, it genuinely does feel like losing a book or an album. Someone once said to me that the majority of music that's been written throughout human history, no one will ever hear. Because the vast majority of music is kept on either CDs or LPs or old recordings that are in museums that are held by private collections that never actually get released. Which to me is a real shame. That is a massive, massive shame. And that makes me sad. It genuinely does.
I would love to actually see that. Like MMO history museum, kind of, a digital one where you've got all these old MMOs hosted.
Yeah.
But the problem is intellectual property.
Yeah, that's the issue.
This is something that we found out with Jagex. Their old school RuneScape that somebody was hosting private servers for, they kept taking them down, right? And this is why they came up with a compromise to bring old school RuneScape back. So they were spending more money on court cases than they could have possibly made from just hosting it. So might as well host it, right?
Someone's just put the MM Museum. It absolutely would work. That would be great to do. That's why I'm trying to chronicle a load of the MMORPG history before we lose it. Because it's one of those things where we do lose. And a lot of people say, oh, if a game isn't being supported, can't other people just use it? And it's to do with intellectual property rights. So I think this happened with Toontown, or one of the Disney MMOs. Basically, Disney had like an online game, and it got taken down, and someone put a private server up. The reason that it had to be taken down is if a company do not take reasonable steps to protect their IPs, it may set legal precedent that they do not care about protecting their IPs, and this can be used against them. So if Disney make an MMO and then someone else loads up a private server and Disney don't do anything, and that person then starts monetizing the private server, and Disney say, hey, take that down, he'll say, well, actually, you haven't done anything. You haven't stopped me doing this, so you have given up your right to this IP. That's often what it's about. Isn't Disney losing the IP rights to the original Mickey Mouse.
Mickey Mouse, yeah.
In a couple of years' time.
They are, because it's a combination, I believe, of the time that's passed and the changes that have been made to Mickey Mouse.
Yeah. We're talking about the original Steamboat Willie stuff, yeah.
Yeah, if a copy of something is a 90% match to what you have, so even like Chinese knockoffs, you know, of brands and that, if they're 90% similar, they are classed as infringement.
Yeah.
However, Mickey Mouse has changed so much over the years that he's now not 90% similar to the original Steamboat, so it doesn't really count. It's really hard for them to enforce that now.
There's a film that fell foul of this, actually. Let me see if I can remember which one it is. I want to get this correct. I think it was... it's either Night of the Living Dead or Dawn of... It might be Dawn of the Dead. Let's see if I can get it. Okay, cool. Correct me if I'm wrong. So, yes, it's Night of the Living Dead. That might be the one. There was a film that was created and made and sold, but the paperwork was wrong. And it turns out that the film actually released into public domain, which means anyone can then immediately take that film, remake it, remaster it, recast it, just do whatever they want with it and sell it as their own thing. Night of the Living Dead, thank you. So you can make a film called Night of the Living Dead, and you can make it as similar to the original famous Night of the Living Dead as you want to and sell it as your own thing, and it's public property. That's ridiculous.
There's another interesting thing you can do here, and a lot of companies do it, and people don't know why they do it. People think they do it for money. Do you know why old companies are always selling... companies that have been around for years are still selling merch for their old stuff? It's because it acts as a buffer to protect their IP rights.
It's also why they make a load of shit Fantastic Four films. Seriously, genuinely, that's actually why they do it, because if they don't keep making Fantastic Four films, they lose... They don't lose the right immediately, but they lose the kind of legal strength.
Question.
Yeah, they lose the legal strength of saying, no, we are still doing Fantastic Four. Look, we released them recently. That's why they've all done it.
This does allow for something that the community can do, and it's kind of funny. So, honest to God, the only reason that we have WoW Classic and Old School RuneScape right now is because people challenged the companies on their rights to the intellectual property. And they realised people want it, and we don't want to deal with all these court cases that will eventually fall through in their favour. So you got what you were after, which was old school and classic. And people are going to continue to do this with other games now. I just know it. As games update, people will want the old version back, and they can essentially blackmail the companies into bringing back the version of the game they like.
And this is why I think games as a service is a very dangerous precedent to set. Because if you buy a game and you playing your game is reliant on the servers for the game... In fact, there's a perfect example of this. Have any of you on, I think it was PlayStation 3? It was one of the Tony Hawk's games. It was Tony Hawk's... Let me just see. I want to make sure I get this correct.
I think I know the one you're on about, but I can't think what it was called.
I think it was Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5. That may have been one of them. Anyway, what happened was the Tony Hawk's let's say Pro Skater 5, because it might be that one, and that's... I'll look. If one of you guys in the chat can research it, that would be great. The physical disc that released was actually a demo disc that only had the first level on it. But what it also had on the disc was the connection to the server that would allow the player to download the rest of the game.
Yeah.
When those servers went offline, anyone that bought that game secondhand now only gets the first level, because that's what's on the disc. The disc is now connecting to servers that don't exist anymore, and they physically cannot get the game.
Yeah, this is one of the big problems with DRM. If a game is required to authenticate proof of ownership... but that company's gone bump, or they've just stopped support for that game.
What was it? What was the
you're
game?
Shit out of luck.
There was a big game. Was it The Sims, the latest Sims? But it was a single-player game, but required online authentication. Or was it Diablo 3?
There's been so
It may have
many.
been Diablo 3. It was one of them, or it was something.
Or all of them, I think. Lots of them do it now.
It was a single-player offline game that literally required you to connect to the servers to play. Was it Hitman?
The latest
SimCity. SimCity, that's what I'm thinking of. Yep. Thank you, everyone in the chat. You're spot on. SimCity. Literally the perfect game to sit there with the internet turned off and just build a freaking city, but it required online authentication constantly.
Yeah. Hitman was the same. I don't know why it's pointless. The latest Hitman, because GOG released that on their launcher, and they're very, very anti-DRM, right? Mm-hmm. Then they released this without telling anyone that it's got DRM, and day one people are like, I have abysmal internet that I can't even get booted up half the time. Yeah. I literally can't play a game that I've just paid $60 for.
I've got a lot of respect for good old games, but if they're doing that, people need to know. People very, very much need to know. They need to know what they're buying and how they're getting it. Didn't they had a piss take in The Witcher 3? Have you played The Witcher 3?
No.
There's a quest in The Witcher 3 that takes the piss out of DRM. Let me see if I can find the name of the quest for you. Okay. Okay, so it's called Gottfried's Omni-Opening Grimoire, which of course is GOG. It's literally for GOG. Gottfried's Omni-Opening Grimoire is an item that you need to get past the Defensive Regulatory Magicon, or DRM for short, and get into a tower. So you can only you need the GOG to get past the DRM, which I think is brilliant. They made that just to be like, hey guys, there's no DRM in this, which I think is fan-bloody-tastic. That's incredible. That's an excellent way of doing it. But no, games as a service sucks because the only people that benefit are the people who are constantly siphoning money away from the players. The players don't get it. You look at old games like PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2, and this is why I am so adamant in physical media. It's also why I'm adamant in physical media having the data on it. A lot of people look at me and say that I'm crazy for still buying DVDs. I want to know that that DVD can go into a DVD player and play exactly what's on it, and that will never change. And that may be very archaic of me, but I think it's also relatively safe of me because they're never going away, which is good for me.
That's true. I mean, I think we are getting to a time now where, like Blu-ray players and that, I'm starting to see less and less TVs that come with them now.
Yeah.
Like Samsung have almost exclusively stopped doing it.
I mean, the PlayStation 5, when that released, that has a disc drive version and a digital-only version. And the digital-only version is quite a bit cheaper because they know you're going to have to buy the digital games for it, and eventually those servers are going to go offline. But I am very much a fan of physical media, not just because I'm old, but because it seems to be one of the safest ways to guarantee you've always got access to your media.
Have you noticed that society is moving, like all around the world, is moving towards the concept of owning nothing and renting everything?
This has become a doomer podcast now, hasn't it? We're now just going to be like full on dooming it. But
these darn kids.
Yeah, I mean, renting has always been a thing when you look at stuff like Blockbuster, and that's really showing my age. But you look at stuff like renting videos and renting DVDs and renting games, but games as a service is effectively no different to just renting something long term. You're paying one fee to get it, but you're also agreeing that when they want to stop giving it to you, you won't have it anymore, which sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. And there are some phone shops in the UK now. I'd seen advertisements on Facebook that now do only phone contracts. You are not physically able to buy the phones. And at the end of your contract, you must give it back in perfect condition before you get your new one.
It's almost like renting a car, isn't it? Like
it's exactly like that.
Yeah, you purchase a car and you pay your money back over the months. And when you get to the final payment to buy the car off, you often discover that the final payment is more expensive than just buying the same car second-hand. Yeah. And the reason they've done this is because they want you to trade it in for another car so they can sell your car to somebody else and the cycle continues.